It was 2 a.m. middle of the Atlantic. A sailor woke up drowning inside his own boat. 76 days later, he would crawl onto a Caribbean beach after drifting 1,800 miles in a 6-foot rubber raft, completely alone. Most people lost at sea die in days. He lasted 76. He drank rain out of plastic, ate raw fish with his bare hands, watched his body eat itself to stay alive. But the thing that almost killed him wasn't sharks. It wasn't storms. It was something far more cruel. And you can't even see it on camera. In the next few minutes, you'll see how one impact in the dark turned a solid boat into a sinking coffin. How he had just 10 minutes to grab the tools that would keep him alive for 76 days. And how one tiny decision in that chaos saved his life more than a month later. This is the true story of Steven Callahan, the man who turned a rubber toy into a survival machine and somehow outsmarted the Atlantic. Steven lay below deck in his tiny 21-foot sailboat, Napoleon Solo. He wasn't a rich adventurer. He was a young American naval architect, boat-obsessed. He had designed and built this little boat with his own hands. Simple, tough, just big enough for one man, and supplies for an Atlantic crossing. In January 1982, he left Canary Islands alone, aiming for the Caribbean. No support, no backup, just him and 3,000 miles of ocean. For 11 days, everything went smoothly. Warm days, trade winds, flying fish skipping across the waves. He fixed small things, wrote in his journal, navigated, ate simple meals. It was exactly the kind of solo ocean life he dreamed about. He didn't know it, but those peaceful hours were about to end in less than a minute. One night in February, as he half dozed in his bunk, the world exploded. A violent bang shook the hull. The boat lurched like it had hit concrete. For a second, there was silence. Then he heard it, the roar of seawater blasting in. He jumped up. The cabin floor was already filling. Something had smashed the hull below the waterline. He grabbed the pump. It did almost nothing. He rammed cushions and sails into the hole. The water just forced him aside. In minutes, Napoleon Solo was turning into a sinking box. He did a fast, brutal calculation. He had maybe 10 to 15 minutes before the boat disappeared. Every second he wasted on the boat was a second less he'd have to stay alive on the raft. And he was about to make the one decision that would decide if he lived or died. He tore open a locker and dragged out the emergency life raft, an orange Avon inflatable, 6 feet long. He threw it overboard, pulled the CO2 cord, watched it explode into shape on the dark water. Then he started the fastest packing job of his life. He plunged back into the flooding cabin. He grabbed whatever might keep him alive. Food and water, a small ditch bag, his spear gun, his sleeping bag, charts, a sextant, a tiny survival manual, anything sharp that could help him hunt, anything that might later accidentally kill the raft. He hurled it all toward the raft, hoping it stayed close. The mast groaned. Cold water climbed over bunks. He tied a line from himself to the raft, took one last look at the boat he'd built, and jumped into the Atlantic. Minutes later, he was shivering inside the raft, watching the mast of Napoleon Solo slip under the waves. In one night, he'd gone from ocean racer to castaway in a floating toy. He didn't know it yet, but some of the things he'd just grabbed would save him weeks later. The raft was tiny, low canopy, thin floor, a short-term escape pod, not a home. The built-in survival kit was basic. The real value was the gear he'd saved. A few cans of water and food, some shark meat that a spear gun and knives, rope, a signal mirror, a few flares, a solar still, a strange plastic device that could turn seawater into fresh water, and, crucially, his sextant and charts of the Atlantic. He looked around this cramped, sagging bubble of rubber. He gave it a name, Rubber Ducky. It sounded cute. Nothing about what came next was cute. As a naval architect, he knew the ocean's currents. Here, the trade winds and the North Equatorial Current drifted slowly toward the Caribbean. If the raft stayed afloat, the ocean might carry him to land, but that could take months. So he made a decision. He stopped thinking, someone will rescue me soon. Instead, he told himself, No one is coming. I have to ride this thing all the way to shore. That thought became the base of his whole survival plan. It might have been the real moment which saved his life. From now on, every day will be an experiment. Fix, test, fail, repeat. From day one, he treated Rubber Ducky like a project. He reinforced seams with fabric and glue, padded the floor so it wouldn't wear through, ran ropes around the outside to grab if he fell overboard. He built a simple sea anchor from rope and canvas. It slowed his drift. It kept the raft facing the waves instead of rolling sideways. Then he started thinking about food. He hung lines and bits of rope in the water. Soon, slime and algae began to grow. Small fish gathered in the shade of the raft. Bigger fish came to eat the small ones. Without knowing it, he had started building a tiny, floating reef beneath him. He set a strict routine. Because out here, if your mind drifts, you die. Morning. Check for leaks, pump air, inspect the sea anchor. Day. Fish, repair, clean, sketch, log his position. Night. Bail water, adjust lines, try to rest. Every task meant one more tiny reason to keep going. He didn't know it yet. But one small habit from this routine would save him when he almost slipped out of the raft in the middle of the night. The emergency rations vanish fast. There is no grocery store in the open ocean. When the Alaskan was gone, he had only one choice. Learn to hunt from a bouncing rubber pool or die. His main weapon was a spear gun. At first, he shot the little fish under the raft. Better than nothing. Not nearly enough. Then the mahi-mahi arrived. Long, powerful, golden-green fish. They looked beautiful. They were almost impossible to catch from a rubber toy. They began to circle the raft like curious dogs. Catching them was a war. Each shot yanked his body forward. Each hooked fish thrashed and pulled. One bad movement, and a fin, tail, or hook could rip a fatal hole in the raft. He wasn't just hunting for food. Every shot risked his only shelter. Sometimes sharks appeared, drawn by blood. He had to drag the fish in fast, before they shredded it inches from his legs. When he won, he used everything. Meat, organs, blood, eyes, all of it raw. He dried thin strips in the sun when he could, trying to build a tiny pantry for bad days. Sometimes birds landed on the raft to rest. He lay still, then grabbed their legs in a quick, violent snatch. Out here, everything alive was either food, a threat, or both. Even with all that, his body kept shrinking. Ribs showed. Hip bones pushed against the skin. Food was a battle, but it wasn't his worst problem. You can live weeks without food. You die in days without water. And almost all his water now came from a fragile plastic toy that kept breaking. The solar still looked ridiculous. A clear plastic dome and a small basin. In perfect conditions, it could give him about a liter of fresh water a day. Conditions were never perfect. Salt leaked in. The still flipped, flooded, or cracked. The plastic clouded in the sun. He spent hours nursing it, cleaning it, patching tiny holes, trying to coax a few more drops from it. Whenever clouds gathered, he turned the raft into a rain catcher. Plastic bags, the canopy, any curve that could hold a puddle. Some storms dumped more water than he could store. Then days came with nothing. No rain, barely any output from the still. His lips split. His tongue felt like leather. His urine turned dark. He measured every sip like it was liquid gold. Half a cup now might mean one extra day at the end. It's a cruel thing. Choosing to stay thirsty today. So you might live to be thirsty next week. And he still hadn't seen land. Or another human. The ocean wasn't just attacking his body. It was slowly killing Rubber Ducky. Sunlight burned the fabric. Salt stiffened and cracked it. Fish spines, hooks, and unseen debris punched tiny leaks into the tubes. He woke more than once half submerged. A chamber sagging. Water sloshing over the floor. He grabbed the pump with shaking hands. Forced air back in before the raft folded and trapped him. Sometimes he slid halfway out in his sleep, his body hanging in the black water. The only thing that saved him was a habit. Every night, he clipped himself to the raft with a line. This tiny choice, repeated every night, saved him when a wave almost stole him in the dark. Rubber Ducky was not a safe room. It was a collapsing bubble. and he had to keep fixing it from the inside while living in it. All the while, something else circled below. Sharks patrolled under the raft. Gray shapes in the blue. They bumped the floor, flashed past whenever he rinsed fish blood into the water. He knew one mistake could flip the raft, or take a leg. Storms hit without warning. Waves picked the raft up and hurled it down. Wind screamed in the canopy. Storms meant danger. They also meant fresh water. He learned to fear and welcome them at the same time. The silence between storms was almost worse. No voices, no land, just sky and water for week after week. How do you stay sane when you haven't seen another human in 50 days? He talked to himself, named the fish, redesigned the raft in his head, replayed old movies and songs from memory. Most important, he kept tracking his drift with his sextant and rough guesses. He marked the position on a damp chart, tiny pencil marks, crawling west. It didn't look like much, but it meant he wasn't frozen in place. He was moving, slowly, towards something. He just didn't know if he would reach it alive. Then, one day, he saw something that felt impossible. A ship on the horizon. This should have been the end of his nightmare. Instead, it became one of the worst moments. He fired a flare, flashed his mirror, waved until his arms shook. The ship kept going. Too far, too high above the waves to notice a 6-foot raft. Another time, a ship came closer, close enough to see people on deck. Again, he signaled. Again, no one turned. Most people's hope would have died right there. For him, each miss hurt. But it also meant one thing. He was drifting through real shipping lanes now. Land had to be getting closer. So he went back to the routine. Repair, fish, pump, measure, endure. By mid-April, the ocean began to change. More birds, more floating seaweed, different colored water. Old sailors know these signs mean one thing. Land is finally close. On April 20th, his 76-day adrift, he saw a small fishing boat, not a giant freighter, a wooden skiff, human-sized, clothes. He waved a makeshift flag and shouted. This time, the boat turned. The fishermen were from Marie Galante, near Guadeloupe in the Caribbean. They pulled alongside the tiny, sun-bleached raft and stared at the bearded skeleton of a man inside. They gave him water, a little food, and helped him onto their boat. For 76 days, the ocean had been his entire world. Now it suddenly ended with the sound of an engine and voices in another language. In the hospital, doctors treated him for dehydration, infections, and extreme weight loss. He had survived. Later, Steven Callahan wrote his story in a book called Adrift, 76 Days Lost at Sea. He uses notes to help improve life raft design and survival gear. He even advised on the film Life of Pi to make the raft scenes feel real. He always said he was lucky. Lucky the raft inflated. Lucky he grabbed the right tools. Lucky the currents carried him to land. But luck wasn't the whole story. He treated the raft like a boat he could redesign. He treated his mind like a machine that needed tasks. He treated the ocean like a system he could learn. That mix of design, discipline, and sheer will kept him alive long enough for luck to find him. If this true story of Steven Callahan's 76 Days in a Rubber Raft gripped you, hit like. And if you want more real survival stories from oceans, deserts, ice, jungles, caves, and mountains, subscribe to the channel. There are many more to come.